The phone rang at 2:17 a.m., slicing through the quiet like a knife. I've always feared middle-of-the-night calls, those cruel messengers that refuse to wait for daylight. My trembling hand reached for the phone on the third ring. Mrs. Reynolds, this is Mercy Hospital. Your son James has been admitted with a suspected brain aneurysm. You should come immediately. For a moment, the world tilted off its axis. At 65, I had buried a husband-faced illness and weathered loneliness, but nothing could have prepared me for the thought of losing my only child. When I arrived at the hospital, still wearing my nightgown under my coat, the doctor's face told me everything before he spoke. Massive aneurysm, no warning signs. Nothing could have been done. His words echoed in my head until they lost meaning. Already gone. My brilliant, kind-hearted James, gone. Hours passed in a blur of signatures and whispered condolences until the automatic doors opened and his wife Sophia swept in designer sunglasses, hiding her eyes. There was traffic, she murmured, checking her phone. Not a single question about James. I had already called Lucas's school, arranged care for my grandson. Sophia hadn't even thought to tell her 8-year-old that his father was dying. When I told her, she blinked, her painted mouth forming a perfect O of shock. But he was fine yesterday, she whispered, pressing a manicured hand to her throat. There was a flicker of something behind her expression. Relief. Calculation, before she remembered to look devastated. She made phone calls in hushed tones, stepping away whenever hospital staff approached with questions. When asked about funeral arrangements, she deferred to me with a lazy wave. You know what he would have wanted better than I do. By noon, James's longtime friend and attorney, Thomas Bennett, arrived, grief written plainly across his face. He embraced me tightly. I can't believe he's gone. We just had lunch on Monday. I nodded through tears. He turned to Sophia, whose practiced sorrow didn't fool him. We'll need to meet soon, he said gently. James left instructions in his will. Sophia perked up immediately. Of course. Perhaps tomorrow. I'd like to get things settled quickly for Lucas's sake. That phrase, for Lucas's sake, became her favorite shield. Even in my fog of grief, I recognized it for what it was, a way to mask ambition with maternal concern. Lucas, sweet and sensitive, adored his father. I dreaded the moment he'd learn his hero was gone. He'll need his grandmother now more than ever, Sophia said later, her tone syrupy and false. She wanted control of the narrative of appearances, but I had spent 30 years teaching psychology. I knew a performance when I saw one. At the funeral, she was flawless. Black designer dress, tasteful pearls, tear-proof mascara. She leaned against me just enough for sympathy straightened when someone important approached. To the crowd, we looked like a united front, the grieving widow and the broken mother. But I felt how lightly she rested against my shoulder, ready to stand tall the moment the cameras turned. Lucas's small body trembled beside me, his grief raw and unfiltered. Is Daddy really in there? He whispered. His body is, I said softly, but his love stays with us. He nodded solemnly. Sophia's sharp whisper cut through. Sit up straight. People are watching. After the service, mourners shared stories of James's kindness, how he'd helped clients in trouble, reduced fees, fought for fairness. My heart swelled with pride and shattered anew with every memory. Across the room, Sophia whispered with a tall man I didn't recognize. Her hand brushed his arm too familiarly. When I approached, she smiled. Oh, this is Richard Harlow, one of James's real estate partners. His handshake was cool, his condolences mechanical. I tucked the moment away in my mind. That evening, Thomas pulled me aside. "Eleanor," he said quietly, "James left explicit instructions for you and Lucas. Trust your instincts about him. You'll understand soon." His tone was careful, almost protective. Before I could ask what he meant, Sophia joined us all business again. "We should resolve the estate quickly," she said. "I'm thinking of taking Lucas away for a healing trip." The way she said it away sent a chill through me. The next afternoon in Thomas's office, the truth began to unfold. Sophia sat across from me, confidence fading as Thomas read James's will aloud. "To my wife, Sophia Reynolds, I leave the lake house property, my investment portfolio with Meridian Partners, and a life insurance policy totaling $500,000. She smiled faintly until Thomas continued. "To my mother, Eleanor Reynolds, I leave the family home at 1742 Oakwood Drive, both vehicles, and my personal bank accounts." Sophia stiffened. "That can't be right. We bought that house together." Thomas slid a deed across the desk. "The property was purchased solely in James's name before your marriage." She glared at me as though I'd written the will myself. "And what about Lucas's college fund?" "Held in trust," Thomas said evenly. "Eleanor is the trustee." The color drained from her face. She tried to recover, twisting her tone into wounded confusion. "James would have wanted his family to stay in our home." "You already have your own house, Eleanor. Surely you don't intend to take ours away from Lucas." The implication was clear. Opposers and I was the villain. I kept my voice calm. "I'm as surprised as you are, Sophia. I'll need time to process this." Thomas ended the meeting with one more envelope, sealed my name on it in James's handwriting. "He asked me to give you this privately," he said. I took it home, my heart pounding. Inside was a single page. "Mom, if you're reading this, the unthinkable has happened. My marriage has been failing. I've discovered things about Sophia that make me fear for Lucas's well-being. The house, cars, and money are to protect you both. She'll fight this. Don't confront her. Watch, wait, document everything. Thomas has the rest. I love you. Protect my son." I pressed the letter to my chest, tears falling freely. My son had seen what I hadn't, and now, even in death, he was still protecting us. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with James's letter spread before me, the sunlight glinting off my wedding ring like a cruel reminder of the family we used to be. His words were steady, deliberate. He hadn't written them in panic. He'd planned for this, which meant whatever he'd discovered about Sophia wasn't just suspicion. It was proof. I made coffee, but couldn't drink it. My hands trembled too much. I thought about calling Thomas, but I remembered what James had written. Don't confront her. Watch, wait, document. So I did what any mother would do when her instincts screamed danger. I paid attention. Sophia called around 10. "Eleanor," she said sweetly, "I've been thinking. I know this has been hard on both of us, so why don't we keep things simple? You stay in your house, I'll stay in mine, and we can discuss the rest after the estate settles." Her tone was light, but every word felt rehearsed. I agreed to meet for lunch at her insistence. Better to keep her close. She arrived late, of course, stepping out of a new white Lexus I didn't recognize. When I asked if it was rented, she laughed. "James's insurance covered it," she said. "It's what he would have wanted." Inside the restaurant, she ordered wine before noon and smiled too easily. "I've been thinking about Lucas," she began, stirring her drink. "He's been having nightmares. Maybe a change of scenery would help. Florida, maybe I could enroll him in a school there." "Florida," I repeated. "That's 2,000 miles away." "Just for a while," she said quickly. "I need to heal. We both do." I felt my stomach twist. James had been right. She wanted control, and distance made that easier. Lucas needs stability, I said softly. He just lost his father. She sighed dramatically. You always think I don't know what's best for him. I think I said carefully that what's best for him is staying close to family. Her eyes hardened. Family, she echoed. Funny how you define that word only when it suits you. Then smiling tightly, she added, Oh, by the way, the title company called. Apparently, James's vehicles are still registered under both our names. You wouldn't want the Lexus sitting around unused, would you? I forced a smile. You can drive it, Sophia. But the titles won't be changing. Her expression faltered, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. After she left, I sat in my car for nearly an hour, letting the mask of calm slip away. I'd buried my husband and my son. I refused to lose my grandson, too. That evening, Thomas called. Eleanor, he said, I've reviewed everything James left. There's more. I met him at his office the next morning. He closed the blinds and handed me a flash drive. Your son hired a private investigator 6 months before his death, he said. He never told me why, but the report came in 2 weeks before the aneurysm. I think you should see it. I plugged the drive into his computer, and the first file opened with photographs. Sophia entering luxury hotels laughing with the same man I'd met at the funeral, Richard Harlow. The timestamps were recent. In some photos, they held hands. In others, they kissed in plain view. Thomas's voice was low. James knew. He just didn't want to believe it at first. There were also scanned documents, bank transfers, credit card statements, even fake invoices linked to James's business account. Sophia had been draining his funds long before he died. He confronted her once, Thomas said. After that, he changed his will. Quietly. My throat closed. Do you think? I couldn't finish. He hesitated. It's impossible to prove foul play now. But your son was careful. He left protection for you and Lucas. I drove home in silence, clutching the flash drive like a lifeline. My grief hardened into resolve. The next day I visited Sophia's house. Lucas ran to hug me, his small arms tight around my waist. Grandma, he said, Mommy says we're moving soon. But I don't want to leave Daddy. I looked at Sophia over his shoulder. Her smile was sharp. He's exaggerating. We're just talking about it. Lucas, I said gently, why don't you go play for a bit? Grandma needs to talk to your mom. When he was out of earshot, I set a folder on the table. Inside were printed copies of the photographs and transactions. Sophia froze. What is this? She whispered. The truth? I said quietly. I know about Richard. I know about the money. I know James found out. Her face drained of color, then flushed red. You have no proof these weren't doctored. You're overstepping, Eleanor. Maybe I said standing. But if you take Lucas out of state, I'll give these to the police. And the IRS. Her jaw clenched, but she said nothing. The silence between us was electric. When I reached the door, she hissed, You think you're protecting him, but you're just punishing me. I turned to face her. No, I'm protecting James's son, the only innocent one left in this mess. That night, I found another envelope in the back of James's desk drawer, one I'd overlooked. Inside was a handwritten note. If she ever tries to leave with Lucas, call Thomas immediately. There's a guardianship clause in my will. Lucas stays with you. Tears filled my eyes again, this time not from grief, but from gratitude. My son had thought of everything. I called Thomas. It's time, I said. The next day, Sophia received a court summons. Guardianship of Lucas was now under judicial review, and for the first time since that terrible night, I slept soundly. The custody hearing was scheduled for 900 a.m. sharp, 1 month after the summons was issued. I arrived early, my hands clasped tightly around a photograph of James and Lucas taken the summer before he died. Father and son, laughing in the sunlight, unaware of the storm that was coming. Sophia swept in 15 minutes late, draped in black silk sunglasses, perched on her head, a picture of elegance and wounded pride. Her lawyer followed behind her, whispering strategy. Mine, arranged by Thomas, greeted me with quiet confidence. "We'll focus on the documentation your son left," he said. "Stay calm. Let the facts speak." When the judge entered, the room fell silent. The proceedings began with formalities, evidence, submissions, statements, and a review of James's will. Sophia's attorney argued passionately that removing Lucas from his mother would be cruel, citing the emotional devastation of recent loss. But when the financial investigator took the stand, her mask began to slip. Mrs. Reynolds, the investigator, began addressing Sophia. "Can you explain these transfers totaling $180,000 from your late husband's company accounts into a private account under your maiden name?" Sophia smiled thinly. "Those were reimbursements. I managed several household expenses for the business, such as resort stays and jewelry purchases," the investigator pressed. "And these invoices from a firm that doesn't exist." Her voice faltered. My husband approved those." The investigator placed a signed statement from Thomas on the desk. "Mr. Bennett confirms he reviewed these same documents with Mr. Reynolds 3 weeks before his death." Mr. Reynolds had begun the process of legal separation. The courtroom murmured. Sophia's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. Then Thomas stepped forward with another exhibit, photos of Sophia and Richard Harlow. "Your Honor," he said evenly, "these images were obtained by a licensed private investigator hired by the deceased. They indicate a long-term affair that began prior to Mr. Reynolds's passing." Sophia's composure shattered. "He was controlling paranoid. He had no right to spy on me." The judge raised a hand. "Control your tone, Mrs. Reynolds. This court is concerned with the welfare of your son, not your grievances." I kept my eyes on the floor as her voice rose. Every denial, every accusation only confirmed what James had known. When it was my turn to speak, I stood slowly, my heart pounding. "Your Honor," I said softly, "I'm not here to punish my daughter-in-law. I only want what's best for my grandson." My son's final letter expressed fear for Lucas's safety, not because of violence, but instability. He left safeguards so that Lucas would never become collateral in adult mistakes. I handed the judge the original letter from James, the ink slightly smudged from my tears. "He asked me to protect his son. That's all I'm trying to do." The judge read it carefully, his expression grave. "This letter," he said, after a long pause, "shows clear intent. Combined with the evidence of financial misconduct and ongoing instability, it's the opinion of this court that temporary guardianship of Lucas Reynolds will be granted to his grandmother, Eleanor Reynolds, pending further review." Sophia gasped. "You can't do this. He's my child." "Indeed," the judge said firmly. "And you may visit him twice weekly, under supervision, until the final ruling." She stormed out before the gavel struck her heels clicking like gunshots down the marble corridor. Outside the courthouse, I exhaled for the first time all morning. Thomas placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "James would be proud," he said quietly. That night, Lucas and I sat on the porch of the old Oakwood house. He leaned against me, holding his father's favorite baseball glove. "Grandma," he whispered, "are we going to stay here now?" "For a while," I said, stroking his hair. "Your daddy built this house to keep us safe. We'll take good care of it for him." He nodded sleepily, resting his head on my lap. The moonlight washed over his face, so like James's when he was that age. I felt the ache of loss ease just a little. Over the next few weeks, the house filled with life again. Lucas's laughter echoed down the halls as we cooked pancakes, built model airplanes, and watched old home movies of his father. But peace was fragile. One evening, as I closed the curtains, headlights flashed across the yard, an unfamiliar car idling by the curb. Ellis, our elderly neighbor, called the next morning. That woman was out there late last night, he said. The one from the hearing. She parked across the street for nearly an hour just watching the house. My stomach turned cold. Did she come onto the property? No, but she looked angry, he said. Mean kind of angry. I thanked him, hung up, and locked every door. Sophia's silence since the ruling had been too easy. I should have known she was planning something. Later that week, Lucas came home from school clutching a folded note. A lady gave it to me, he said. She said it was from Mommy. Inside were 2 sentences written in Sophia's handwriting. You can't keep him from me forever. He deserves to know the truth about his father. I felt my knees weaken. What truth was she threatening to tell? I called Thomas immediately. She's not finished, I said. No, he agreed grimly. And I think she's about to make her next move. It happened 3 nights later. The rain was steady, whispering against the windows as Lucas slept in his room down the hall. I was sitting in James's old study, rereading his final letter when the motion light outside flickered on. My chest tightened. Through the curtains, I saw the shadow of a woman near the garage. The same silhouette I'd seen in that courtroom weeks before, tall, confident, angry. Sophia. I moved quietly through the hallway, careful not to wake Lucas. When I reached the front door, I flicked on the porch light. Sophia, I said through the glass, you shouldn't be here. Her eyes gleamed in the light. She was soaked to the bone, her mascara running in black streaks. You think you've won, don't you? She hissed. You think taking him from me makes you some kind of saint? I'm protecting him, I said calmly, just like James asked me to. James, she spat the name like poison. You still think he was perfect? He wasn't. Whatever you're planning, I said, don't do this in front of Lucas. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a flash drive. Then, tell him the truth before I do. What truth? Her lips curled into a cold smile. Ask yourself why he changed his will right before he died. Why he stopped trusting me. You think I ruined your family? Eleanor James already did that himself. My pulse quickened. What are you talking about? She shoved the flash drive into my hand. See for yourself. Then she turned and disappeared into the rain. That night I couldn't sleep. The flash drive sat on the desk like a loaded weapon. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to preserve whatever image of James I still had. But another part, the mother the protector knew, that lies, even well-intentioned ones, rot from the inside out. By dawn, I couldn't resist. I plugged it into my laptop. A folder appeared with 3 files. The first was a video clip, grainy footage of James in his office, pacing, voice tense. I made a mistake, he was saying to someone off camera. I never should have invested with them. The second file contained emails between James and a company named Meridian Partners. They referenced misused funds, missing assets, and a silent partner whose identity was redacted. The third file was a bank statement transfers from James's account to offshore holdings. At first glance, it looked like embezzlement. My heart sank. It couldn't be true. My son, the man who'd built a life on integrity, would never do this. I called Thomas immediately. You need to come, I said. Now. He arrived within the hour, reviewed the files, and frowned deeply. These look authentic, he said slowly. But something's off. Meridian Partners doesn't exist anymore. It dissolved 2 years ago under a different name. Could someone have fabricated them, I asked. He hesitated. It's possible, but we'll need to trace the metadata. We sent the drive to his firm's tech specialist that afternoon. That night, as Lucas did his homework at the kitchen table, I stared at the storm outside, haunted by Sophia's words. When Thomas called 2 days later, his voice was tense. Eleanor, you need to sit down. What did you find? The flash drive wasn't made by your son. It was created 6 weeks ago from Sophia's laptop. The metadata matches her account signature. I closed my eyes, exhaling in relief and fury. So she forged everything. Yes, badly too. The financial logs she copied don't match the bank's actual ledger. She wanted to paint James as corrupt, to discredit you before the custody ruling became permanent. I felt a slow burning calm settle over me. Then, it's time to finish this. We filed a report with the court, adding the forged evidence to Sophia's growing list of infractions. When the police arrived at her apartment to question her, they found her gone. Her phone was disconnected. Her social media wiped clean. Weeks passed. Lucas began to smile again. We baked cookies, watched old cartoons, planted flowers in the garden. The laughter returned, small and fragile at first, but real. I thought maybe, just maybe, the storm had passed. Until the morning of Lucas's 9th birthday. We woke to the sound of the mail slot clattering. I picked up a large envelope with no return address. Inside was a photograph of James and Sophia at their wedding, smiling under a canopy of roses. On the back, in Sophia's handwriting, was a single line. "He wasn't who you thought he was." For the first time in months, I felt real fear, not for my safety, but for the truth. Because somewhere, deep down, beneath my anger and my certainty, I couldn't shake the thought, what if she wasn't lying this time? I didn't tell Thomas about the photograph right away. Something in me needed time to sit with it to decide whether Sophia's message was another manipulation or the start of something darker. For days, I kept it tucked away in the drawer beside James's watch, but I couldn't stop thinking about those words. He wasn't who you thought he was. One afternoon, I went into town to pick up Lucas from school. As I waited in the car line, I glanced in the rearview mirror and caught sight of a familiar figure standing by the oak tree near the fence. Sophia. She was watching the playground, her hood pulled low, pretending to check her phone. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. When Lucas finally ran toward me, I stepped out, making sure she saw me. Our eyes met across the wet asphalt, hers defiant, mine unflinching. Then she turned and walked away. That night, I finally told Thomas. He came by after dinner, his expression serious as he examined the photograph. "She's escalating," he said. "But the good news is, she's careless, leaving physical evidence like this." "It's another violation of the custody order." "I don't want her arrested," I said quietly. "I just want her gone. Then maybe it's time to give her what she wants, truth." The word hung in the air like smoke. "You mean James?" He nodded. "There's one piece of his estate I've never discussed with you, because frankly, I didn't think it mattered anymore. But if she's hinting at it, she might already know." He opened his briefcase and handed me a thin folder labeled Project Meridian. "It wasn't a scandal," he said carefully. "It was a mistake." Years ago, before he met Sophia, James invested in an energy startup. The company folded under questionable circumstances, and though he was never charged, he blamed himself. He lost a fortune, nearly everything he'd saved before marriage. It's the only secret I know of. Relief and sadness collided inside me. "He thought that failure defined him," I whispered. "And she's using it now to tarnish him." Thomas nodded. "It's all she has left. But if we expose the full story, show the intent, the lessons learned, it'll rob her of power." I looked at the photo again, the smile on James's face, frozen in time. "Then, let's do it," I said. "For Lucas." The next morning, I contacted a journalist James had once trusted, an old colleague from his early engineering days named Carol Hayes. She agreed to meet privately. Over coffee, I handed her the folder and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, then finally said, "If we tell this story, we tell it right. Not as a scandal, but as redemption. A man trying to make things right. A mother protecting what's left." Within a week, the article was published online. The Real Legacy of James Reynolds, Integrity Beyond Loss. It detailed his business misstep, his quiet restitution, and his final years spent building stability for his family. There were photos of the house of Lucas and a single quote from me. My son's life wasn't defined by his mistakes, but by how fiercely he tried to protect the people he loved. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Neighbors stopped by with flowers. Strangers left comments about second chances and resilience. For the first time in months, I felt peace until a letter arrived, postmarked from Vancouver. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper in Sophia's handwriting. Congratulations, you've rewritten history. Enjoy your happy ending while it lasts. Thomas filed a restraining order extension that same day. Still, I couldn't shake the unease. Some nights, I'd catch myself glancing out the window expecting to see headlights on the road. But weeks passed with no sign of her. Eventually, the silence felt like healing rather than threat. A year later, the final custody ruling arrived, permanent guardianship granted to me with supervised visitation rights, for Sophia suspended until psychological evaluation. Lucas was thriving, taller, brighter, his laughter echoing through the hallways of the house that now truly felt like home. One spring morning, I found him painting in the sunroom with colors smeared on his hands. "It's for Daddy," he said, holding up the canvas. The painting showed 3 figures, one tall, one small, and one surrounded by light. That's him, watching us. I smiled through tears. He'd love that. That night, after Lucas fell asleep, I opened my laptop one last time and played the final video James had left for me. His face appeared serene and familiar. If you're watching this, Mom, then you've done what I hoped protected Lucas and yourself. I know you'll forgive me for what I couldn't say in life, that love isn't about holding on, but letting go when the time comes. Tell Lucas that his father wasn't perfect, but he always tried to be good. I closed the laptop gently, the weight of grief finally softening into something lighter. Outside, the wind rustled the trees James had planted, whispering like his voice carried on the air. Sophia never resurfaced. Maybe she moved on, maybe she didn't. But I no longer lived waiting for her shadow. The truth had survived her lies, and Lucas would grow up knowing not just who his father was, but who he'd chosen to become. Sometimes I still visit the cemetery bringing fresh lilacs. I tell James about Lucas's grades, about how he's learning guitar, about how the house feels full again. And when I leave, I whisper the same words every time. We're okay now. You can rest. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about love, family, and the strength to begin again. Leave a comment to tell me what part moved you most.